Welcome to Aligned and Alive, where we move beyond the surface and into your deep knowing. I'm Shyane Montgomery, and this is your space to trust your intuition, clear what no longer serves, and rise into your highest self. Your wisdom is already within. You're here to remember. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Aligned and Alive. Today, my guest is Kristy Crabtree, a licensed counselor. She's been going through a massive transition as she comes to know herself deeper. I met Kristy in Arizona at the JOA publishing event after we both decided to become authors. And that's where we connected. And I just fell in love with her warmth, her heart. And I actually did get to hear a little bit of her story. And so I was so excited when she said that she would be a guest on this podcast because she has so much wisdom to share, wisdom that she's lived and embodied. Kristy, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for that sweet introduction, and thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with just a like-minded, beautiful soul.
That's what is so fun about going on this journey and just following that like energetic nudge to take the next step in writing a book, because you really find people that, like you said, are like-minded and are looking at things very differently than the majority of people. And a lot of times that can feel really scary, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To do things differently. But I would just love for you to start off by sharing a little bit about your life before.
Yeah, absolutely. There definitely is. I think when we have these moments in our spiritual evolution or our awakening, there's a moment that we say, this is before and this is after. For some people, that's, tragedy. That's the initiation. For some people, it's remembering. But there is, in everybody's life, there's, what's that quote? The moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. But
Yes.
it's an initiatory gate is what that is. And so for me, that gate was painful. It was the initiatory gate of remembering, of finding out that I had repressed memories and that they were ruling my life. So there's a quote by Carl Jung who says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. It's not fate. It's a karmic loop. It's a pattern.
Okay, so what was going on in your life? Like when you say that, were you having dreams? How did you know that you had repressed?
Yeah, I didn't know. And so what I did know is that I was always somebody looking for more. I didn't know what more was, but I knew I'm a person who's driven. I've built a successful business. I've went from being a solo private practice counselor to creating a multi-million-dollar counseling center. And all that's great, but it left me feeling very unbalanced. So I'd be in therapy. I think all good therapists should know themselves and should go to therapy. And so I do that. I do that. But it was like, I felt like maybe I wasn't getting to the root of why I never felt fulfillment. I felt joy. I felt accomplished, but I didn't feel fulfilled and I couldn't understand it.
Man, I think every single person can relate to that.
Right? Yeah. It was like, why am I still feeling this insatiable longing? Why am I never satisfied? What's wrong with me? I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing marriage. I have 2 beautiful sons. I've built this amazing career. What's going on? Well, I couldn't get to the answers in therapy. It's like I would dig things up, right? Like I grew up with a dad who was addicted to drugs. It was verbally and emotionally very violent. Okay, I processed that. I had forgiven. I had done the work. I was a sick child. I had 2 partial lung removals by the age of 16 years old. My lungs just spontaneously collapsed. I came to find out later that the grief I suppressed, I put in my lungs and they were cut out. So yeah, that was news to me. I knew my lungs had been removed, but I didn't realize it was because they were storing so much grief.
Yeah.
I had a spontaneous healing at 4 years old. I was a very sick child. I was born with a left ventricular septal defect, which is a hole in my heart, and it was big enough to be classified as severe. I was supposed to have open heart surgery, and it spontaneously healed before my 4th birthday. And I am in a medical journal for Kaiser Woodland Hills by my pediatric cardiologist. So the imprint, the blueprint of healing, I believe, was literally put on my heart as a
Yeah.
baby. My purpose was put on my heart in a very literal
Ugh, that
sense.
gives me spirit bumps.
So I couldn't find out where this hunger was coming from. And I decided to kind of dabble in psychedelics. And that illuminated a universe inside of me I didn't know was there. And at the time, I thought I was having what they would call a bad trip.
Okay.
And now I know today there are no bad trips. There are difficult ones. And I know that this medicine illuminates what's inside of you that's ready to be witnessed and seen. And what I've come to realize today is that you're not going to have an experience that doesn't resonate with something on the inside. And so I did some deeper work, realizing, wow, there's some terror in my nervous system that I don't understand the origin of. So
Yeah.
I worked with a shaman who helped me surrender into the feeling of terror instead of fighting it and running from it. And I got 2 pieces of information that day. One piece of information was your grandfather had affairs. And I'm like, what? Okay. He's dead. So's my grandma. Like, I don't know what that has to do with me. But the other piece of information was you were sexually abused. And it was at a very young age. You were so little. So little that my baseline of safety didn't exist in my body because it was taken away from me at such a young age.
Wow.
Now, when you find something out like this, you do not want to believe that that's true.
Right.
And so I thought, I'm a bad person. I must be making this up. Maybe there's something wrong with me that these images would come to my mind.
So I'm just imagining that you don't have proof of this. You're on this psychedelic trip that you're like, okay, can I truly believe this?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if
yeah.
I do believe this, what kind of earthquake
Yeah.
is it going to create in
It's like
my
a
life?
bomb dropped in my life, right? Because how could you accuse anybody of something that horrendous, like that big, without having
Without
tangible?
evidence.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do that. And I didn't. So I sat with it and I prayed about it. And I mean, that's the kind of information that, man, if you don't know God, you get to know him real quick because you're just like, God, help me. How do I
Yeah.
navigate this? That's a really big, ooh, it makes me a little emotional still. You know, it's like that's a really big accusation. That's a really big piece of information.
Yeah.
If this is true, I need it validated. And if it's not true, cleanse my soul because something clearly is wrong with me.
Yeah.
So I wrestled with that for years. I talked to my mom. She's like, Kristy, I just can't see it. I can't see that happening. And I was like, okay, something is wrong with me. You know, and so I continued in therapy, tried to integrate it, figure it out. And there was a day that the person that I saw in the journey contacted me and, you know, just a normal conversation, just to say what's up, called to say hi. And I said, hey, this is going to sound really weird. But I said, I have to ask you something. I have some really early childhood memories coming up, and I need to know if my grandpa cheated on my grandma. Like, do you know if that's true? I said, there's like these visions happening that bring me all the way back to childhood. He says, you know, I never touched you, right? I said, what? He said, because if that's what you're thinking, that's disgusting. And if we need to get a third party involved, we will. I said, I asked you if grandpa had affairs. And he goes, well, you're asking weird questions. You're going to get weird answers. And I was just like, okay, God, got it. And so I asked this person if I could just take some space and that I needed some time to process. And later he reached out to my children and just said that he could never forgive me for what I've accused him of and that we no longer have a relationship. So that confirmed it to me. Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. But what I can tell you is before I released my book, I called a family member and said, I want you to know that I'm writing about this in a book. It's obviously related to somebody that you know. You don't need to believe me. I just said, this is my truth and you don't need to adopt it as your own, but I need you to know before it comes out. She goes, you know, I don't know if it's real or not real, but I can tell you something. And I said, what's that? She goes, grandpa had affairs.
My goodness.
Yeah. And I said, thank you for that. That's all I needed to know. And that's been it. That's been it with that side of the family. And that's okay.
But it was like them coming together and how they were linked every time. It was like the witness and the evidence that you needed.
It was like spirit knew I needed a lot to believe that that was true because nobody wants to believe that that's true. Nobody. You would
Right.
rather blame yourself than believe that happened. And so I didn't want to believe that it was true. And so it was like God gave me another piece of corroborating evidence to validate that I know what I know. And that day, my soul was liberated. My soul was set free. It was like the thing that I had been searching for, the thing that was insatiable inside of me, finally
Yeah.
felt satisfied. But that came with the tough realization that the life that I had built was around that wound and that it needed to be deconstructed. Because it came from a place of consciousness that I was no
Yes.
longer aligning with.
Yes.
So that's the before.
Well, and I think it's so interesting when you really dive into these things. It's like it looked a certain way, but the energy that it was built in was for a reason that was out of alignment, right?
And it's
And
not
then
to
when you pull it
say,
into alignment,
yes.
when you pull it into alignment, everything can look the same on the
Mhm.
outside, but the energy of it, the feeling of it, is totally different. And also, like, you still are helping people. Before in your life, you were dedicated, your mission was to helping people. And now that you have this knowing and this understanding, you're still dedicated and your mission is to continue to help people, but it looks and feels. I mean, am I putting words in your mouth?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, from an outsider, everything looks the same. It doesn't feel the same in my body.
Yeah.
I realized that I had a way of denying pain and pushing through and learning that as an adaptive strategy. And yes, it serves me really well to grow a beautiful business that serves the community and my employees and all those things. But it was at the cost and the expense of myself. And so I can't do that anymore. So, I've my counseling business looks and runs really, really well. But I've delegated out a lot of my role and allowed myself time to heal, allowed myself time to take a step back and to rest and to discover, who am I? What does this mean for my life? And so, it's been a really, brutal and beautiful journey. And it's in that dark cave where the memory hid were also my latent gifts. My sessions with clients started changing because it was like as I dug that up and released it, what my spirit guide showed me is that when you have a wound, it carries density in the cell, right? The memories live in the
Yes.
body. The body keeps the score.
Yeah.
And so my DNA responded by holding more light. And when DNA holds light, things around you move at a different speed. They're not dragged down by this third dimensional reality. They move at the speed of light. So things started moving and shifting at the speed of light, and these latent psychic or spiritual gifts, whatever you want to call them, started coming back online inside of me. And so my sessions with clients, although they were the same, I was doing psychotherapy. I started communicating with their dead loved ones. I started communicating with their pets. I started seeing things that they hadn't told me about what was coming up in their life. And so it all just started to shift.
Wow. That is just so much encouragement to lean into the things that might scare the absolute hell right out of us.
That's just it. Because the way I learned to see it, what my guide showed me is that, let's say you get an injury, a physical injury early on, like in your leg, for example, or your hip. And if you don't deal with it, if your parents never took you to the doctor and you didn't do the thing that your leg required for it to heal correctly, your body will compensate by walking with a limp. And all this scar tissue and all the defenses build up to protect that injury so that you can still function day to day. Well, they showed me that emotional injury works the same way. In order to, be a child in an abusive home, you still have to go to school and get the grades and do the survival things, but you learn to do it with a limp, and
Yeah.
scar tissue and defenses and protection builds up around that injury in layers so that you can survive. But eventually you have to take the time to excavate those layers and get down to that original wound and see what's underneath it.
Yeah. And I would say, like, you get to. It's
Yeah.
actually a privilege to be able to excavate that so that you can live more in your truth and your remembrance of who you truly are.
Absolutely. And by the grace of God, I had a safe husband to do that with. I had children who allowed me the space to navigate it because they were old enough. Like I really had a wonderful situation to heal in.
So what would you say to someone feels themselves in kind of in that space, like there's some unsatiable something in me?
Yeah.
What would you say to them? Is there a time that you know that it's time to step into deeper healing? How does someone know?
You know, there's like a saying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, like, which I love. Like, I've taken clients to AA for years as a therapist, and they would say that when the pain of staying the same starts to outweigh the pain of change, then you know it's time to shift. When it's so painful to stay the same, it's time to get curious. I think we tend to be critical, we tend to be harsh with ourselves, we tend to beat ourselves up. And I think curiosity is like a catalyst. It's like if you can take this 3,000-foot view and start to be radically honest and curious about yourself and just start to ask yourself, that's interesting. You've done this thing. You've avoided things like this. For how long? Man, since what? I was 8 years old, 10 years old. Well, what was going on at the time? That was really when things started getting rocky between my parents, and I would have to hide because I was scared to hear their arguments or whatever, right? And so you start to see wow, maybe a real young part of me is running the show and making decisions and involving itself emotionally. It's not
Yeah.
an adult in the room when I get triggered, right? And so you can start to have compassion and curiosity towards these young parts of yourselves and ask them, what do they need from you now? What do they need now that they didn't get then? How can you start nurturing and fostering an actual relationship with the wounded parts of you? To reduce shame and start to facilitate some compassion for yourself.
When we're talking about that and we're talking about the darkness that's held in your cell or the density that's held in your cell. So when people say, oh, they have a demon,
Mm-hmm.
can you share your perspective on this? Is it a demon or is it actually just trauma that has never been brought into the light?
Hey, I'm curious to hear your thoughts too, but I'll share mine. So I am going to say yes and both. I think our demons are absolutely trauma that is still in the body. There's quote by Hermes Trismegistus, right? As within, so without, as above, so below. And so I like to look at that in a microcosmic and a macrocosmic view. So if I'm eating foods that are like toxic and unhealthy and have a lot of sugar or a lot of heavy metals introduced into my system, parasites will be attracted to my gut to clean those things out. I look at negative thoughts and trauma as a dirty gut microbiome almost that
Yeah.
attracts in dark entities, thought forms, spirits. So, yeah, they can start to influence you from outside, but they begin within. They have to have a place
You
to
have to have the
resonate and to
magnet
land.
for it within.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call it resonance. That's what they've called it for me. And I've seen this. So like when I was little and my dad was active in addiction, I would literally see spirits and I would know that they were there because of whatever he was doing, even though I didn't understand what that meant or why. But after he left the house, the spirits went away. And so it validated that they were connected to my dad and his behavior. And so, obviously that was like a very toxic atmosphere that they were drawn into, but it was all a result of his unhealed and unprocessed trauma. Addicts aren't addicts for no reason, right? So he was a victim too that never chose to heal and lived with a lot of shame. And then that influenced my environment growing up. So, what are your thoughts about that? Just curious.
This has come up for me a lot lately of trying to understand that. And I think that's exactly how I feel about it is we can make decisions, but we can't choose the consequences of those decisions. And what I believe God wants for us is freedom. And so I grew up in an LDS religion and, you know, there was a lot of rules. But looking at it now, I'm like, they actually provided a lot of freedom. Because if we are using substances like alcohol or like whatever it is, if we're using substances that lower our frequency, it creates cracks for those negative or darker energies to attach to you. And so I think that the whole invitation in all of this is how can we become really accountable? How can we become curious to lean into feeling some of those emotions, bringing awareness to it so that because there's a lot of fear around that. Oh, I'm going to get hijacked. I'm going to get,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fear around that. And it's like, we don't need the fear. The fear actually lowers us into being more
Yes.
susceptible.
And I want to say this. What I've noticed and what I firmly believe is that nothing can have control over us that we do not give our power away to. So it's the traumas, it's the substances, it's the anger, it's the shame that we give our power away to that then have the opportunity to hijack us. So there needs to be consent on some level. It's not a conscious level, but unconsciously,
Yes.
subconsciously, we have given our power away. And for me, healing is not about becoming something different, fixing anything, becoming anything new. It is an integration of our wounds. And a byproduct of that is reclaiming our power and not giving it away to anything outside of ourselves any longer because we know who we are.
Yeah. It's like you're really seeing truth
Yeah,
instead of from the experience that we had. It's like you're not the experience.
that's it. And we get to call those parts of ourselves that were fragmented during those experiences back home. Because when they weren't adequately seen, witnessed, when it wasn't safe to feel it completely because it would have overwhelmed us and we just needed to survive, it wasn't the time to feel it, right? Like if anybody watching has been in a tough marriage, or been in a circumstance where they had to delay feeling things to survive. I watch, as a therapist, I see a lot of women finally decide to get that separation or that divorce and they get sick. They get physically ill and it's because their body finally can right, just
Yeah.
release and rest. And when they slow down and the adrenaline and the cortisol stop pumping, the body's like, I'm exhausted and I'm sick. And they break right then. And then sometimes they question their decision, but it's just because they're finally safe. And so the
Yeah.
body's like, slow down, right? Like, let's start digging in and healing because they couldn't do it during the trauma.
Love that you said that and you explained that so well because that is what oftentimes happens and then we start second guessing ourselves and it's like no, that's what we needed. We just didn't have the space to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So how has it felt for you to crack open those spiritual gifts? Has it been hard for you
In some ways,
to claim those spiritual gifts?
I want to say, what a long, strange trip it's been. It's been weird, I'll be honest. It's almost like you have to get a little bit comfortable with weird, you know what I mean? Or just really like this trust fall into yourself. Yeah. I started channeling, which was new for me. I had gotten throughout my whole life, little psychic hits or insights or precognitions, nothing to the degree that I experience now. Um, where sometimes my consciousness will almost take a back seat and entities can speak through me. They can use
Okay, wait, when you say entities, what do you mean by that?
spirit guides, highly
Okay.
evolved beings, star beings, things like that. They're different. It's not like it's usually just there's sometimes one, she's like this African American lady with bones painted on her face and people see her when she's working through me. Like if I'm facilitating somebody in medicine, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you look like this African woman with bones on your face and you have no hair." Like I've had 5 or 6 people see her in my face and I can feel what her energy feels like. She's stern. She's very loving, but she's don't lie in front of this woman. She'll call you out, which like isn't my personality. She's like, no, actually, let me tell you how it is. And she's just like this grandmother energy
So how do you know it's in the light and not the dark?
because she speaks love and truth and wisdom. And I've done physical healings through her. I also personally like to work with Christ. And so I ask before I bring anybody into a medicine ceremony or before I channel or do anything like that, that Christ is with me and that anything coming through comes through in the light, love, and pure energy of unity consciousness in Christ. And so I feel like once I state that intention that I can trust what comes through.
I love it.
Mm.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Such amazing things. So yeah, I mean, you're just like stepping into this full trust of yourself, but I see how you've like walked this path that has built the trust with every step. And then I've watched you for the last year
Yeah.
and you're just taking these bold, courageous moves. But is that what you'd say is allowing you to? Is because that trust in yourself, but also in who you're partnered with and anchored in?
That's exactly it. I mean, I trust God, and when even now, it's like there's moments when I don't fully trust myself, but I trust God. And so that's my prayer. How do I walk in alignment, with God's will for me? And that seems to open up realms of like possibility and opportunity that probably didn't exist before, that are aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing with my mission in life, the people I'm supposed to meet, right? I'll ask God, surprise and delight me on this path. And he does, things that I look back on and just laugh about now. Cause it's like, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, like if I would be doing some of these things that I'm doing now, I would have been like, no, there's no way. There's no way,
Wow.
Yeah. My mom had a real tragic accident a year ago on New Year's Eve where she was air vac from her small town to the hospital, and she had a brain bleed and head injury. She had broken bones. Her fingers were really like, gosh, just raw, and she couldn't bend them. I mean, there was so much swelling and they were almost black because of all the pooled blood and the restricted blood flow in her fingers. And as she gradually started to heal and get a little better, she was at my house and I could feel the presence of Christ with me. There's a very high vibrational, I almost feel floaty in his energy. And he said, hold your mother's hands. And so I said, Mom, I feel that Christ is here and he's asking me to hold your hands. Can I do that? She goes, oh my gosh, yeah, I could feel like tingles down my neck. And I said, okay. And so I held her hands and I closed my eyes and I'm feeling all the fear and pain and like emotion that happened when she had this accident
Yeah.
in my body. So I'm like breathing through it, like breathing to try to move the energy through my own body.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden in the back of my hand, I feel a pop and I can feel like something draining down my fingers like this. And I told my mom, it's complete. It's going to take 3 days. I kid you not. I took her out to lunch after that. During lunch, we watched the swelling in her hands go down so much that she could pick up a fork without it hurting. Within 3 days, her fingers went from black to skin colored again because it started to drain down the back of her hand. And she told me it was almost like it had gone from 50 to 80% healed within 3 days and that she could eat with utensils again. I mean, that was just the start. You know what I mean? And I'm not at a point where I feel like, oh, let me just invite somebody into my office and physically heal them. But I can tell you when the X factor comes into the room, and works through me, those things can happen and they do happen. And so it's opened my mind up to this realm of like new possibilities and miracles and I speak about it, not to be like, let me toot my own horn, but because I want people to know what is possible. I don't want anybody to limit what they believe is true and real or possible for them
Mm-hmm.
because things can literally change in an instant, but you have to know and you have to trust that they can.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So yeah, what does that look like with where we're headed right now? Everything that's going on in the world, it could look like things are really scary. People don't know who to trust, how to
Yeah.
discern. What words of advice, like where are we going? And is this all part of the process to help us reclaim
Yeah.
deeper truth?
I think so. I think right now people are opening up their eyes to multidimensional truth and awareness, realizing that we are on Earth, but we are not of Earth. Our origins are in the stars, and people are remembering their true history. So, in my most recent book, Reclaiming Eden, I had been channeling these messages about my soul's journey and history for years, and I'd written them in journals, and I didn't see how they related to the book I was writing. But what God showed me is the fall. And he said, Kristy, look at this. Your first incarnation I showed you was on the stars. And we lived on this planet where like my eyes would dilate. And when they dilate, I would look at a plant and bring the light from the plant into my body. And that's how I was fed. Like I could see it, I could feel it. It was this harmonious place where when we would eat an animal, which we only did 4 times a year, that we had 4 moons, and we would eat these animals during a ceremony to honor each of the moons. And the animals would know they were chosen and they would surrender into death. And when we ate them, they would literally live through us. And they were honored to get to experience life through our avatars, through our bodies. So we just combined with those animals. It was so sacred. And then I saw this life where I was in Lemuria, and I knew that there was going to be the great flood that's talked about in the Bible. And we would anchor these codes into the earth because we knew this cycle was going to repeat, this karmic cycle. And we knew that in 12,000 years, which is where we are right now,
Okay.
we're on the same precipice. So we knew that those codes would need to come from earth so people could start remembering. And so in that life, what I was shown was Atlantis had technology that they abused. Like their consciousness couldn't keep up with the advancement of their technology. And they were very masculine in the way they did things and evolved, where Lemuria was very feminine. And that started the split of polarity between masculine and feminine. And it's the divide that haunts us today. So the female goddess, has been suppressed since then. I saw another life after that where I was a Syrian woman from the star Sirius, and I would come to Earth after the flood and teach the Egyptians how to start civilization at the dawning of a new civilization. And I was told, your soul comes with the dawning of a new civilization. All these lives were to prepare you for right now. And they said, you will find your people. So many people on this planet at this time are here for the dawning of the new civilization.
And so what does that look like? What is the new civilization?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know. But what I feel like is we're at that split again where technology is evolving very quickly and our consciousness needs to keep up. Technology is neutral, but the consciousness dictating the technology can be positive or negative, and that will influence whether our culture is enslaved by technology or whether we can use it as tools to greatly benefit humanity. I think we're going to become interstellar. I think we're going to learn how to travel through time and space with our consciousness. I think we're going to start to meet our star family and other galaxies and wake up to the fact that we've never been alone.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's a lot. These last 2 years, it's been a lot.
Yeah. This is the beautiful thing, is that you have gone step by step by step. And so someone hearing this that is still at step number 1, where they're like, there's something more here, they can hear this and be like, oh boy. But then there will be other people on the journey that are like, no, I actually can see this.
What's interesting is that as I'm being more honest about it publicly, because I've been experiencing this for a while, I have not wanted to talk about it because I had enough things coming up that make me sound a little crazy. And I was like, I don't really need to solidify that. But what I realize is that when I share, it liberates others to do the same. And we need a context for this, because if they do not understand what they're experiencing, they'll dismiss it.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, whoa, that was weird.
Well, I've been having this dream like over and over and over again. It's the same dream. And it's like, I'm trying to pull something out of my throat that I can't get out. Like it just will not end. I can't get it
Really?
out. Yeah. But then I felt called to create a podcast, but then there's fear of, I can see the fear. You don't want to talk about that. People are going to think you're crazy. Like, I don't think people are ready for that. My human is like, you're going to separate yourself from people. But it's like this dream is trying to show me, like, you can't not talk about it. You can't not be authentic.
Mm-hmm. That's how I'm starting to feel. I'm feeling more and more called that the time is now, that your voice will liberate the voice of others, that your voice will add context for something that somebody else had no idea how to comprehend.
Right.
And that it's these conversations that get us closer to truth, because we are living in times where we can no longer discern what's real and what's an illusion. AI has become to the point where you almost can't tell the difference. It's only going to improve. I don't think that the media or the government or anybody we call an authority over ourselves has our best interest at heart anymore. And so we have to go within. And Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within. He said, all these things I do, you will do,
Yep.
and more. And I believe that these beings, some don't look like they're from this planet, some do. I believe that they are living in a realm of unity consciousness, because I work in the light of Christ and they come in through that portal. And so I think that Jesus is very, very active on our planet now, that he's very much alive, that he wants a relationship with each and every one of us, and that he's guiding us on this path of evolution. I think that the second coming of Christ is now. And I think it's happening through each and every one of us as we find there was a path of study that Jesus had called inner hieros gamos, which is the inner marriage or the inner divine union. And that was about integration. And Christ integrated all of himself. He studied in the East. He studied in Egypt. He studied in India. And he liberated these 7 demons from Mary Magdalene. Those are 7 chakras, 7 initiatory gates that he helped liberate her and find her wholeness. And they created outer hieros gamos, or outer divine union within their relationship, so that when he died and was resurrected, she could hold that and she could channel him. In the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, she continued to receive messages after his death. And one of the most important messages she received was, do not create rules, Christ said after his death. Do not create rules around me, lest you be ruled by them. And what did we do? Right? The Romans killed him, and then they created the church around that. And I'm not here to say that there's anything wrong with religion. Nothing. I'm here to say religion is a book. Books are really great. But the reason we had the fall, the reason Adam and Eve ate the fruit and went from a higher dimensional reality where they were one with God to separation, was so that God could know himself through the experience of all of us, so that we could be given the gift of free will, so that we could perceive ourselves as separate and have these experiences embodied. So he said, fall into darkness. And Eve said, okay. So that way, God, we were never separate. It was the veil of illusion that came down, and we perceived ourselves as separate, so we could know fear, so we could know hate, and we could still choose love. And Christ came to rectify the fall and said, when you guys are ready to ascend back up and to anchor the kingdom here on earth, I'm giving you the blueprint. And we took it, we distorted it, because it was about giving our power away to the church. When I was in that body, in that Syrian ET body, coming back and forth to Egypt, they were worshiping us. And we said, stop, stop. We are you. When you think about siddhis, siddhis, that like these Eastern gurus develop through meditation practice, they can levitate and bilocate, and they can do these cool things. Well, Christ could do those things. Well, what happens? He was one man. What happens when the whole civilization is so spiritually evolved that they can have telepathy and bilocate? We call them ETs. They're not. They are civilizations of advanced humans who are our star brothers and sisters who developed along the same lines Christ did. And there are an entire civilization of them that are like just waiting for us to grow up.
Wow. Wow. So it was really Christ inviting us to follow him. Follow him.
Yeah. He's like, here's the blueprint. And they had to bury that information in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, after Mary Magdalene was persecuted after his death, after Christ's followers were persecuted. Because when we know ourselves, we are ungovernable.
Yes.
We cannot be ruled. We will see through the lies. We will see through the deceit. We will have clear discernment. So now is the time. And so there's a reason those books, those texts of how Christ developed spiritually, they were buried in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, because it was a threat to the Roman Empire. It was a threat to the church.
Wow. It's just so fascinating how you think you're going on this journey to understand yourself deeper. And it just ties everything in
Yeah.
of how it's all connected.
My last book, I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book about relationships. Like when I met you and we had that breathwork ceremony and Kira was like, oh, come to the island. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't even released my first book. I don't know if there's a second book. And I did this breathwork ceremony and this poetry came through about like the repression of women. And I'm like, interesting. I think this book will be about relationships. And it ended up being, yes, about relationships, but it was so much more. It was literally about the fall and the ascension and the true teachings of Christ. And I didn't know it was going to go there, but that's what came through.
So let's go back because I want to understand this a little bit more. When you had that initial psychedelic journey and you saw what you saw, was it multiple times you were doing the medicine so that your gifts would come back online? You go deeper every time. How does this actually look?
Good question. And I'm glad you asked because I don't want anybody to be under this like illusion that it's like a one and done miracle cure because it certainly is not. It's like I use the medicine in reverence and in devotion to God and in devotion to my spiritual path. So I don't take it lightly. I pray over it. It's done very ceremonially. And I would say that each journey has built on itself. Like each journey has given me information and then given me homework that I'm to go and do to integrate it and to learn. It'll suggest books or, I'll be prompted to learn a skill or read something to really help me understand and ground it into my body or to work on something in my own life, like to speak up or to set boundaries or to have the hard conversation with my husband or to whatever. And so like I have to do those things and I don't journey often because it's they're so layered and so dense with information that I have to then unpack it and I have to do the homework and integrate it into my body.
Okay.
So each one really, I mean, this has been like a multi-year journey of descending into the depths of my own lower energy centers and then learning how to ascend into like astral travel and channeling and like incorporated mediumship and those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up because I'm like, wait,
I'm so glad you asked.
did we
Yeah.
crack all of that open in one session? But I think it's a very important part that you spoke to of saying, I get the information and then I embody it. Because what can happen is we can just love to be in the medicine
Yeah.
and we never embody it.
Peak experiences are great, but I'll be honest, it's like sometimes I get information in these experiences and there'll be pieces that 6 months to a year later, even I'm still unpacking and being like, oh my goodness, like I didn't understand that piece of material. And now it's all coming full circle and I'm seeing how it fits in, how it relates, what that means. So yeah, I'd say don't rush the process.
Okay, so if someone is curious about doing the medicine, what words of wisdom would you offer them?
You know, preparation. I think preparation is the most important thing. I used internal family systems therapy to prepare myself. I am a therapist. I do that modality, but I sought out somebody who does that modality to prepare my nervous system for the work and to really solidify what my intentions were. It's something you feel a calling towards. Don't do it when you're in a crisis. Make sure that, kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Make sure that, you've got a roof over your head, you're feeding yourself and your family, that your relationships are stable, and that if something hard comes up, you can ground into that platform of stability to resource from. Because you don't want to do it in a crisis point thinking this is going to heal me and make things better. It can be very destabilizing.
That's so powerful. Yeah. If you have the intention to do the medicine, that people will come across your path and you will know that you do it with them.
Yes, and be careful. Like common sense things. If you're a woman, don't do medicine alone with a man. I don't care how much experience he has. Have a woman sit with you too. In every field, there's some riffraff. And so discernment is key. And when you're coming from a place of trauma, sometimes discernment can be clouded by charisma or things like that. Those are just my little red flags. It's just, it's everywhere. But this field can have some very healthy people and some people who can talk a big game and say they have your best intentions in mind. So just keeping that in mind.
Awesome. Kristy was so good. Where can people find you? How can people work with you or find you, or what do you have to offer right now?
Thank you. I have a retreat coming up. I'm taking a very, very small group. This is going to be a really small, intimate group of souls who know that it's time to come alive, right? Like the time is now and their latent gifts and abilities are coming online. So we're going to go down to the jungles in Puerto Morelos, which is like 20 minutes south of Cancun, Mexico. And we're going to be doing 3 nights of Aya. And I'm really excited for this one. There's like the traditional Shipibo style ceremony that we'll do with a phenomenal shaman down there who I vetted. And then we're also going to do a day of Santo Daime. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Okay. So there is this religion in like the Afro-Brazilian traditions in the Amazon called Umbanda or Santo Daime. Santo Daime is kind of based in Umbanda, but it's like this blend of African traditional religion and Catholicism from like when the slaves were brought over to the Amazon. So Santo Daime means give me spirit. And so it's about developing your own unique gifts and mediumship and learning how to channel spirit through your body. And if that feels uncomfortable, then it's about learning how to allow yourself to surrender to the will of the divine. Wherever you're at in your journey, the medicine can really meet you there. So we're going to do a daytime ceremony where we communicate with our souls, with our own higher self, with God, and with nature. And then we're going to do a couple days of traditional Shipibo nighttime by candlelight ceremony. Where we're going to go to cenotes, like the underground rivers in the jungle, where we just cleanse, rebirth in the water. It's going to be really beautiful.
So amazing. Yeah, that will
Yeah.
be. You ended up still with the same mission to help serve people.
Yeah, I feel like it just expanded. Now, it's like I can help people heal trauma, but it's like I also want people to know their multidimensional selves. The bigness of who they are, coupled with like the humility of our own smallness and like the deliciousness that is this reality. There's so much more.
So is that the one thing that you would leave people with that are feeling like, is this all there is?
Yeah.
Is get curious. There's
Get
so
curious.
much more.
Yes. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to the places that you feel drawn to, but you have no idea why. Don't dismiss experiences that you have. Listen to your children speak. My kids came in dropping cosmic knowledge, and like I didn't even put 2 and 2 together until so much later in life because I didn't have the framework for it. Yeah.
I can 100% like see you there, because I feel like our kids are wise beyond, and it's like we're trying to catch up.
Absolutely. These kids are our teachers if we allow them to be. Yeah, both of my boys came in with a scar over their hearts. They were born with it. And I didn't think anything of it. They're healthy kids, but they have physical scars. They're 18 and 16. They're grown, but they still have the scars. And when my oldest was 3 and my youngest was 1, I was making them lunch and President Obama was like on the TV talking. And my oldest goes, "Is he the man that controls the wars?" I go, "Well, yeah, baby. Presidents make decisions about wars." He goes, "Then I don't like him." I said, "Well, why?" He goes, "Don't you remember when me and Rylan were big and we were in the war?" I said, "No, tell me about it." He goes, "Mom, they had the big long things that go like boom in your heart and then you die." And I was like right here. And I point to his scar. He's like, "Yeah, right there." And Rylan too. And I swear to you, my oldest son has like dark hair, dark skin, dark eyes. My baby's very fair complected. I lift up the kid's shirt, and sure enough, my youngest son has a scar. I hadn't seen it because he's so fair. But Presley told me it was going to be there, and sure enough, it was. And so then I'm just like, "Tell me more about the war." He's like, "Mom, do we have goldfish crackers today or just apples?" And I'm like, "What?" So sometimes they just know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to someone whose kids are saying those type of things and they're like wanting to shut it down because it doesn't fit with where they...
Yeah, it can be scary, right? Like when your kids are seeing spirits or having like weird dreams, just don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it. Get curious about it. You don't have to understand it, but try to understand it from their perspective and try not to shut down that light. The veil hasn't come over them yet. They're little children below the age of 8 years old. Their left brain hasn't fully developed. They're much more in their right brain, so they're much more open. And we can learn from them.
I love that so much. So much. Kristy, I just want to thank you for leaning into the uncomfortable, to be able to lead into more consciousness right now. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, and I just want to say I see you and I appreciate the work that you're doing in the world so that we can claim and remember more of who we truly are.
That's
And
it.
so thank you. It's such
Yeah.
a pleasure watching your journey and seeing your part in all of it.
Thank you so much. Right back at you, sister. It's been such an honor to have this conversation with you. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll put all of your information in the show notes so that people can stay connected to you, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. If something in this episode resonated with you, or if you think you want to share it with someone else that might be dealing with some of the things that we talked about, please, by all means, share it, because together we rise. Trust your knowing. Take bold, courageous moves. Honor your energy and rise into who you're meant to be. Feel free to carry this alignment into every step, breath, and conversation. If today resonated, send it to a friend, because together we rise.